On Zirion 7, the twin moons hung low and silent, casting dim silver light over the rust-stained surface of the planet. The mining colony where Cade Torres lived and worked stood like a skeleton of forgotten ambition, metal scaffolding, battered cranes, and towers of or processing units that groaned softly in the wind. It wasn't much, but it had been home for the last 3 years, remote, quiet, and mostly devoid of people. Exactly how Cade liked it. At 28, Cade had lived a life already lined with too much grief. After losing his family in a transport accident, he'd volunteered for isolation, taken a contract no one else wanted, and flown out here to this distant rock. Maintenance technician. Decent pay. 0 questions. Total anonymity. His quarters were as Spartan as his personality, a narrow bed, a steel desk strewn with ancient tech manuals, and a single viewport that looked out onto the endless desert. But on this particular night, something broke the monotony. Something fell from the sky. It began as a shimmer on the edge of the horizon, like a second moon shedding skin. Cade stood, brow furrowing, and pressed his hand to the viewport. The light grew brighter, impossibly bright, streaking toward the surface in a smooth arc too clean to be debris. Too controlled to be a meteor. Then came the impact. The shockwave rattled the outpost. His tools leapt from their pegs. The lights flickered, then surged back on. Cade's heart kicked into overdrive. He grabbed his emergency satchel, medical kit, portable scanner, weapon, slung it across his shoulder, and bolted into the night. It wasn't bravery that drove him. It was curiosity, maybe boredom. Or maybe, deep down, a piece of him had been waiting for something to change. Anything. The crash site lay 3 kilometers from the outpost. The walk was brisk. Cade kept low, navigating through dunes and metallic spires left from ancient, unused mining rigs. The trail of destruction was easy to follow, scorched sand, twisted stone, fragments of obsidian-hued alloy littering the ground. And then, he saw it. The ship was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Sleek and semi-organic in shape, its hull shimmered with a deep blue-black tone that seemed to drink in the moonlight. Soft pulses of light ran along its surface, glowing symbols unlike any known language. It looked like it had grown rather than been built, like it belonged more to the sea than the stars. As he approached, movement caught his eye. Someone, no, something, was crawling from the wreckage. Cade froze. Her form was humanoid, but she was clearly not human. Her skin glistened in shades of violet and blue, iridescent under the moonlight. Her limbs were long and powerful, her frame lithe and commanding. Silver-white hair spilled over her shoulders, glowing faintly in the dark. And her eyes, stars above, her eyes were starlight. Glowing with unnatural intensity. Focused. Furious. "Stay back," she snapped, her voice sharp but weakened. An accent Cade had never heard gave her words a musical twist. She pressed a hand to her side. Dark liquid oozed between her fingers. Her other arm dragged a strange, triangular device across the ground, clearly heavy and damaged. "You're hurt," Cade said, hands raised. "I'm not going to hurt you. You don't even know what I am. I know you're bleeding. That's enough." She hesitated. Her eyes searched his face, as if measuring his sincerity. After a long moment, she gave a shallow nod. "Help me, and you become a target of the Dominion Empire." Cade's heart stuttered. Even on this forgotten moon, whispers of the Dominion had reached him, stories of planetary subjugation, resource annexation, and tight-fisted control over entire systems. But she didn't look like a tyrant. She looked like prey. "Then we better get moving," he said, offering his arm. She stared at it. Then, slowly, her hand gripped his wrist. Her skin was warm and smooth, and when their fingers locked, something strange passed between them. Not a jolt, something deeper. Recognition. Together, they moved, stumbling, limping, half carrying each other back toward the mining outpost. The desert wind howled behind them, and the wreckage smoldered like a dying heart. When they reached the airlock, she stopped. "Why?" she asked. "Why risk everything for a stranger?" Cade looked into her eyes, those twin galaxies swirling with light. "Maybe I'm tired of being alone." She nodded once. As if she understood more than he said. The door sealed behind them. In the small, sterile infirmary, Cade worked quickly. The alien woman, who introduced herself as Vega Thorn, gritted her teeth as he sealed the wound along her ribs. Her blood shimmered like molten pearl. "Plasma blade," she said, her voice tight. "A parting gift from Commander Thni. He didn't appreciate me liberating files from his flagship." Cade blinked. "You're a spy." "Pilot," she corrected. "But yes. The files contain strategic data. Fleet movements. Communication relays. Routes through Dominion-controlled sectors. Enough to help the Resistance make a dent." "The Resistance?" She met his eyes. "You've heard of them?" He nodded. "Rumors. Stories. Wild ones. Most true things start that way." He applied another patch of synthetic skin. "You should rest." "I can't." "You have to." "And if they track the crash here?" Cade didn't have an answer. 3 days passed. Vega remained in his quarters while Cade continued work at the facility, each day returning with supplies and updates. He kept her hidden, ensured her vitals were stable, and brought her manuals to read. She devoured them with quiet intensity. By the 4th evening, their conversations stretched well past dinner. "I was training to be an artist," Vega said, sitting by the viewport, watching Zirion's second moon rise. "On Lyrian Prime, we sculpt light into emotion. We paint with plasma. Sing with color." Cade leaned on the table. "What happened?" "The Dominion. They erased artistry. Replaced it with factories. Turned our cities into outposts. Our forests into refineries." He swallowed. "I'm sorry." She looked at him. "What did you leave behind?" Cade hesitated. "Family. They died. Shuttle malfunction. By the time rescue arrived, it was just wreckage. And you came here to forget. To disappear. But you helped me. Maybe I got tired of disappearing." Vega turned back to the window. "You're not hiding here, Cade. You're waiting." "For what?" She smiled. "For someone to ask you to fly." That night, they stood close in the narrow confines of the control center. Not touching. Just existing together, silently orbiting one another like moons to a planet. Longing clung to the air like static. And then the alarm blared. Cade lunged toward the console. Dominion patrol ships, 3 of them, had entered high orbit. Scanners sweeping. Vega appeared at his side, her injured side forgotten. "They found us." Cade looked at her. "The ship. The danger. The choice." "We can run," she said. "It'll be hard. We may not survive." He stared at her. This strange, fierce, beautiful creature who had crash-landed into his hollow life and filled it with fire. "Yes," he said. They ran. Vega's ship was still damaged, but she'd worked on it in secret while healing. As Cade helped her aboard, the systems hummed to life. Lights flickered. Engines groaned. "Strap in," she barked, sliding into the pilot's seat. "This will be ugly." Cade obeyed. Outside, the mining station shrank. Dominion signals closed in. A plasma blast rocked the sky. "Hold on," she shouted. The ship launched. Through the viewport, stars streaked as the nightfall roared toward the edge of the system. Behind them, death. Ahead, the unknown. And beside him, Vega. He turned to look at her, focused, steady, magnificent. For the first time in years, Cade Torres felt alive. Vega pulled back slightly, just enough to meet Cade's eyes again. Her pupils were wide and starlit, reflecting something deeper than the nebula's hues behind her. Something raw. Human, despite everything alien in her form. When you say that, she murmured, I almost believe it's possible. A future. Not just an escape. Maybe because it is. They stood there for a few moments more, soaking in the quiet honesty that hovered between them like gravity. The hum of the nightfall seemed to grow softer, like it too was listening. Come with me, Vega said, voice low. Where? Somewhere with a bed, she replied with a flicker of mischief in her eyes. Cade followed. The crew quarters weren't luxurious. A narrow sleeping berth, emergency-grade blankets, storage bins stacked with rations and tech. But in the dim blue light, with the sounds of the nebula outside and the soft lock of the door sealing them in, it might as well have been another world. Vega moved deliberately, her movements slow, like navigating gravity for the first time. Her hands slid the zipper of her suit halfway down, exposing the iridescent shimmer of her skin underneath. Cade mirrored her, his breath catching as she stepped into his arms, her palms pressed against his chest. I've never, he started. I know, she said, guiding his mouth to hers. They undressed each other with reverence, like touching something sacred. Her skin was warmer than he expected, smooth like silken glass, and where he touched, she glowed, faint trails of light blooming beneath his fingertips. Your body reacts, he whispered. To connection, she replied. To meaning. Under the veil of the nebula, they made love. Not hurried or reckless, but with a kind of quiet desperation. Each kiss was a tether, each touch an offering. In those moments, their histories fell away, the mining moons, the battlefields, the betrayals. All that remained was this. Human and alien. Together. Cade had never known this kind of intimacy. Not only the physical, but the complete surrender of fear. The trust. She saw every broken piece of him and didn't flinch. Vega's breath stuttered as he whispered her name against her shoulder. Her fingers clutched his back like she was afraid he might disappear. Don't vanish, she murmured. Never, he promised. When it was over, they lay tangled together, chests rising and falling in tandem. Outside the ship, the nebula painted their skin in shifting shades. I think, Cade said softly, you're the reason I survived Xerion 7, I didn't know it then, but I was waiting. Vega didn't answer at first. She just reached for his hand and held it tight. I was dying when I fell. Body, soul. I thought maybe it would be a clean end. But it wasn't. No, she breathed. It was a beginning. The next morning, the quiet was broken by a subtle vibration in the floor, movement in the outer hull. Cade sat up, alert. What was that? Vega was already pulling her suit on. Proximity alert. I shut most systems down, but the ship can still feel. Something large just passed through the outer nebula layer. They moved to the cockpit. The consoles glowed dimly, warning lights pulsing. A slow scan displayed the outline of a patrol cruiser, Dominion class. Not close, but not far enough. They're sweeping the debris fields, Cade muttered. Vega frowned. Their approach vector is tight. They're using predictive spirals. They know we're hiding. Can we jump yet? Not without burning the last of the stabilizers. We might be able to drift further into the dust field. Cade looked at her. Can you do it without thrusters? Vega gave a sly smile. Watch me. She guided the ship with the gentlest adjustments, magnetic pulses, gravitational tugs, pressure slides. The nightfall drifted like a leaf in the wind, invisible amid the swirling clouds. I used to do this over the skylakes of Lyrian Prime, she said as her hands danced across the controls. We called it cloud sailing. No engines. Just the wind currents and instinct. Cade watched her, awe in his eyes. I didn't think anyone could move like this without a NAV system. Vega glanced at him. It's not about systems. It's about feel. You don't fly a ship, you become it. As they coasted deeper into the nebula's heart, the sensors showed the patrol drifting away. Cade let out a breath. We made it. Vega leaned back in her seat, visibly exhaling. For now. He reached over, lacing his fingers with hers. For long enough. Over the next 2 days, they repaired what they could. Vega walked him through the Nightfall's design, how the symbiotic interfaces operated, how to recalibrate the sensory mesh, how the ship responded to mood and mental imprinting. Cade adapted quickly. He always had a knack for machines, but this felt different. More intuitive. You're syncing with it, Vega noted. Your resonance is aligning with the core. I didn't think that was possible for humans. It isn't. Not usually. He looked at her. Then why me? Vega smiled. Because you're not usual. They shared more than space now. Their conversations deepened, stories of lost friends, of family, of dreams they'd abandoned before even daring to chase them. Vega told him about her sister, taken by Dominion soldiers in the early days. Cade shared the memory of his father's last transmission before the ship he was on went silent. Pain made them human. Even across species. But it was the quiet moments that changed them the most. Cooking strange meals with limited supplies. Fixing a coolant leak while arguing over music preferences. Falling asleep in each other's arms with the hum of the nebula cradling them like a song. On the 5th night, as Vega read through a data slate and Cade sketched out a new stabilizer circuit on his pad, she looked up and said, "You don't have to keep running, you know." Cade blinked. What do you mean? You said once that you were hiding. But I don't think that's true. Not anymore. He set his pad down. No, I'm not. She crawled across the bunk, kissed him softly. So let's stop hiding together. He nodded. Let's build something new. The next morning, Vega pulled up the NAV logs. We're close to a NAV node, she said. If we can bounce a signal off it without alerting Dominion patrols, we can ping a resistance contact. They can help us get to Kepler Station. Cade stood behind her. We're really doing this? We're doing this. He smiled. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere you're not. She turned, reached up, and kissed him hard. And the Nightfall, sensing its pilot's resolve, came alive with a low harmonic hum, like a vow etched in starlight. Hidden deep within the Veil Nebula, time moved differently. It was as though the nebula had swallowed them whole, wrapped them in shifting colors and humming silence, and let the rest of the galaxy drift on without them. There were no alarms. No Dominion signals. Just stars. Vega spent the first day rerouting power and initiating emergency repairs. Cade worked beside her, learning the strange rhythms of the Nightfall, how it pulsed under his touch, how certain panels responded better to intent than pressure. The ship was more than a machine, it was a living echo of its pilot. You talked to it, Cade noted once, as Vega leaned over the navigation interface, whispering in a language he didn't understand. It listens better when I do, she said with a soft smirk. By the second day, most systems were stabilized, but the hyperdrive remained too fragile for another jump. I can get us to Kepler Station, Vega said. But not in one leap. We'll have to ride the drift lines to the edge of the Veil. Kepler. Smuggler Haven. Neutral ground. Off-grid and lawless. But safe, if you know who to trust. Cade eyed her. And do you? Vega just smiled. I know how to lie convincingly. Cade didn't press. He trusted her more than the logic told him to. In the evenings, they cooked together in the galley. The ingredients were odd, vacuum-packed Lyrian root stems, synthetic broths, but Vega knew how to coax flavor out of them. Cade, for his part, contributed with ingenuity and a willingness to try anything. "We're going to need more food," he said, chewing a bite of purple starch one night. "Kepler has markets. Traders. Black market chefs." He raised a brow. "Black market chefs. The best kind," she said with a grin. They sat across from each other at the narrow galley table, the software of the ship's life support systems cradling them like a lullaby. Cade studied her face in the low light, how her silver-white lashes caught the glow, how her starlight eyes softened when she looked at him. "What will you do when this is over?" he asked. Vega was quiet a long time. "I don't know. I used to dream about returning to Lyrian Prime. Rebuilding. But now, that place is gone. Not just physically. Spiritually. You have nothing to go back to." "Maybe," she said softly. "But I have something to go forward with." Her fingers brushed his hand. Deliberate. Lingering. Cade's breath caught. "You mean that?" She nodded. When they kissed again, it was slower than before. Not desperate, not stolen. It was a choice. A deepening. On the third day, the repairs to the hyperdrive reached a critical milestone. Vega spent most of the day inside the core chamber, adjusting plasma conduits and harmonizing the core flow with recalibrated phase coils. Cade assisted, his hands now more confident with alien tools. He'd stopped asking questions about every button, he followed instinct. And hers. "Hold that panel," she instructed, fingers deep in a glowing matrix of wires. "Got it." A surge of energy lit up the room. Not explosive, reactive. Vega flinched, instinctively shielding him. Her back pressed to his chest. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded but didn't move away. In the quiet between circuits, they stood still. Close. "This ship," Cade murmured, "feels like home now." Vega's voice was a whisper. "Because you're here." That evening, they sat together in the observation pod, a transparent bubble at the front of the ship that offered an uninterrupted view of the nebula. Swirling gases formed rivers of violet, crimson, and deep cerulean. Lightning pulsed between distant clouds, casting momentary shadows across their faces. Vega leaned against his shoulder, her hand resting on his thigh. "I used to come here to think," she said. "Before missions. When I needed clarity. It's beautiful. It reminds me that the galaxy is more than war. More than fear. It still has art in it." Cade turned to her. "And love?" Vega looked up. "Yes. Even that." He kissed her. It was different now. Not just emotional, it was physical. Urgent. Affirming. Their clothes came off slowly, reverently, like a ritual. Cade explored the glowing paths of her body, tracing the silver and blue veins that shimmered beneath her skin. Vega's hands mapped him in return, curious and thorough, learning the shape of the man who had opened his heart to her. They made love there, under the swirling cosmos, two beings entwined in defiance of war, death, and despair. Their sighs and whispers merged with the pulse of the ship, forming a new rhythm, a promise. "You feel like light," Cade said, breathless afterward. Vega smiled against his chest. "And you feel like gravity." The next morning brought movement. The Dominion hadn't found them, but their window was closing. Vega calculated the drift, aligning the ship to escape the veil and plot a course toward Kepler Station. "It'll take 14 hours, she said. "We'll go dark until we're halfway there." Cade nodded. "I'll prep the med station and cabin in case we get boarded." She looked at him. "You're ready for that?" "I wasn't 3 days ago. I am now." She moved to him and kissed him, slow and steady. "We make it to Kepler, everything changes." "Good," Cade said. "I want it to." The nightfall slipped from the nebula's edge like a shadow into deeper space. Outside, the stars multiplied. Distant beacons of civilization and danger. But inside, the ship held two people no longer running from the past, but toward a shared future neither had expected. Kepler's station shimmered like a relic of forgotten ambition, vast, irregular, cobbled together from remnants of derelict ships and outdated tech. It spun slowly in the shadow of a dying star, hidden in the eddies of magnetic storms and layered nebula veils. As the nightfall docked, Cade felt a different kind of tension coil inside him. It wasn't fear, exactly. More like awareness. Danger here would wear a smile. Betrayal might come dressed as hospitality. Stay close, Vega warned as they disembarked. This place runs on unspoken rules. Break one, and no one saves you. Cade nodded, matching her pace. Kepler's corridors were tight and flickering. Alien languages buzzed from speakers. Traders in all shapes and species passed them. One-eyed insectoids. Crystal-bodied diplomats. Cloaked wanderers. The air smelled of ozone, oil, and spice. Vega led him through the maze of decks to a recessed access corridor. There, they met Captain Reeves, a scarred, aging human smuggler who owed her a favor. Cargo haulers leaving in 6 days, Reeves muttered, eyes darting. I'll get you two aboard. After that, you're on your own. Vega offered him a credit chip. He waved it off. You saved my crew once. That makes us even. Cade watched the exchange, something warm blooming in his chest. Vega wasn't just a fugitive, she had history. Allies. Debts repaid. Their quarters were small. One bed. Bare light. But it was theirs. For now. 6 days, Cade said, watching the swirling nebula through a viewport. What do we do with that? Vega leaned into him from behind. We pretend to be normal. For the next 3 days, they carved out something like a life. Vega spent mornings analyzing the stolen Dominion data, plotting optimal routes and encryption protocols. Cade roamed the station, trading minor repairs for food, information, and replacement parts. They met in the evenings, quiet meals, laughter, shared silence. Every night they came home to each other, and that felt more powerful than anything else. On the 3rd night, Vega surprised him with a meal from her homeworld. The flavors stunned his human palate, sweet, spicy, radiant. It tastes like light, Cade said. We make food to reflect memory, Vega explained. Each bite holds a story. He kissed her. This one's about love. She smiled. You're learning. On day 4, Reeves found them in the back of a cantina. Trouble, he said, low and urgent. Someone leaked your presence. Dominion patrol ship dropped out of hyperspace 10 minutes ago. Vega's eyes narrowed. They know. Maybe not yet. But word's spreading. Bounties big enough to tempt every crook here. Cade's jaw clenched. How long until someone talks? Hours. Maybe less. That night, their love was desperate. Electric. As if they were burning it into memory in case they didn't survive. Vega's body glowed beneath his hands, her breath catching on every kiss, every promise whispered into skin. Whatever happens, Cade murmured, you gave me back something I didn't know I'd lost. You gave me a reason to live, Vega whispered. Not just to fight. The next morning brought thunder. Not literal, metallic. Heavy. Boots. Weapons. They were boarding. Sirens wailed through Kepler station as Dominion soldiers flooded its halls. Automated alerts instructed civilians to shelter. Security systems flickered to life, but they were no match for military-grade intrusion. Vega grabbed her travel bag and a concealed weapon. Cade secured their encrypted data and backup disks. They moved together, silently, instinctively. In the hallway, a shout stopped them. You too. Stop. A Dominion officer, tall, cloaked, cruel eyes, stepped into view, flanked by armed troopers. Identification. Cade handed over their forged documents. The officer scanned them slowly. Cade Torres. Mining engineer. And Vega, trade specialist. Communication systems, she replied. Indeed, the officer smiled thinly. I imagine you wouldn't know anything about stolen encryption codes from Admiral Thane's flagship. Vega held his gaze. No. Search them. Troopers stepped forward. Cade's muscles tensed. Before anyone could move, a ripple went through the corridor, an explosion, low and contained, disrupted lighting and sensors. Then chaos. Smoke. Shouting. Resistance fighters, masked and armored, emerged from the smoke. Go, one of them shouted, tossing Cade a stun pistol. Cade didn't hesitate. He fired, catching a trooper in the chest. Vega dropped another with a clean shot to the leg. In the confusion, they ran. They raced through the station's underlevels, guided by the resistance operatives. Who sent you? Vega asked as they ducked through a maintenance hatch. Commander Hayes, one of them replied. We tracked you from the nebula. Figured you'd need backup. Cade glanced at Vega. You planned this? A contingency, she said, breathless. I didn't think they'd get here in time. At a dock, a sleek resistance transport waited. They boarded as plasma bolts scorched the walls around them. Inside, the ship surged forward, breaking free of the station's perimeter just as the Dominion deployed fighters. Shields up, shouted the pilot. Vega and Cade strapped in beside the command chair. Welcome to the Resistance, said the pilot with a grin. Cade looked at Vega. You ready? She took his hand. Always. Over the next day, the Resistance ship ferried them to a hidden asteroid base nestled in the shadow of a gas giant. There, Vega delivered the full stolen archive to command, a massive trove of navigational data, fleet movements, encryption protocols, and resource routes. Admiral Fenn, an aging, silver-haired human with a prosthetic arm, met them in a debrief chamber. You've delivered a miracle, he said to Vega. This information changes everything. What now? Cade asked. We strike. Coordinated assaults. Disruptions. Sabotage. Fenn turned to him. And you, technician, want to be part of something bigger? Cade nodded. Yes. In the following days, they became fixtures in the base. Vega was assigned to lead a scout wing. Cade helped retrofit ships with new stealth tech, using ideas he'd developed on Zirion 7. They shared quarters, tight, but private. When did this happen? Cade asked one night, curled beside her. What? You. Me. This fight. This purpose. When you looked at me on the desert floor and saw more than an enemy. When you looked at me and saw more than a ghost. She kissed him. And now? Now, he whispered, I see everything. As Vega suited up for her first mission as squad leader, Cade joined her at the hangar. Co-pilot's chair is open, she said. Are you asking me to fly with you? Her smile said it all. Always, Cade replied. In the hours before launch, the Resistance base hummed with purpose. Flight decks buzzed with last-minute maintenance. Technicians barked orders. Pilots ran diagnostics. The tension was different than fear, it was clarity. Every person in the asteroid base knew why they were here. The Dominion was weakening, and the time to strike had come. Vega stood at the edge of Launch Platform 7, clad in her flight suit. Light armor hugged her figure. Pale blue veins of energy pulsed along the seams, calibrated to her biometrics. She looked focused, but not cold. Cade approached from the engineering bay, wiping his hands on a rag. His own suit, newly issued, was less ornate, but it fit him well. The technician who once labored in silence beneath scorched skies now stood beside the most wanted pilot in 3 sectors. Not just as support. As partner. "They're ready," he said, nodding toward the sleek scout ship waiting behind them. Vega turned. The starlight in her eyes hadn't dimmed. It burned brighter. "Then let's make it count." The mission was simple in structure, not execution. A Dominion relay outpost nestled on the frozen moon of Lyric Prime was the linchpin for regional fleet coordination. Cut it off, and the Dominion would be blind for days, maybe weeks. Vega and Cade's role: infiltrate, plant the relay virus, and get out before the garrison realized what had hit them. "We'll fly dark past the magnetosphere," Vega explained in their shared quarters the night before. "The stealth systems we installed on the Nightfall will buy us 6 minutes. After that, we go loud." Cade nodded. "We just need 6. I'll handle the code drop. You cover me." Vega smiled, her fingers tracing invisible paths along his collarbone. "I trust you." "I trust you more," Cade murmured. "I love you." She kissed him without hesitation. "Then come back with me. No matter what." Hours later, they soared through the void. Lyric Prime loomed ahead, a frosted marble haloed by drifting ice. The Nightfall stealth drives hummed in eerie silence. "Initiating descent," Vega whispered. "Pulse shield nominal. Signal dampeners engaged." Cade sat at the co-pilot station, fingers moving across the console as the relay virus prepared to upload. "We'll need to get within 30 meters of the central tower. External feed only. No hardline access." "Roger." "Setting us down behind the ridge." The ship kissed the surface in a graceful arc, kicking up a cloud of glimmering frost. Beyond the ridge, the relay station towered in brutal architecture, sharp angles, red lights, motion sensors crawling like insects across its shell. They disembarked quickly, moving under the cover of darkness. Cade cradled the device carrying the virus, tucked against his chest. Vega moved ahead with quiet precision, scanning the approach path. "2 guards," she whispered, pointing to a patrol. "I'll distract. You go." "You sure?" "Always." She slid into the shadows. Moments later, a soft thud signaled the guards were down. Cade sprinted the last few meters, knelt beside the junction node, and connected the uplink. "Uploading," he muttered. 45 seconds. "Make it 30, Vega's voice crackled. "We've got motion, no, wait, 5 coming around the north rim." Cade's hands flew. Lines of code bled across the screen. The interface shimmered, blinked. "Done." "Pulling out." He jerked the cable free just as plasma shots exploded behind him. Vega covered his retreat, returning fire with surgical grace. The 2 of them sprinted through the frost, the glow of incoming fire lighting the ice around them. They reached the ship seconds ahead of the next barrage. "Go," Cade shouted, slamming into the co-pilot seat. Vega didn't hesitate. The Nightfall launched into the sky, evading pursuit with a dizzying roll through the atmosphere. But the Dominion wasn't finished. 3 fighters closed in, fast and armed. "We can't outrun them," Cade said. "They'll box us in." "Not if we blind them first," Vega replied. "Hold tight." She triggered the pulse flare, a blinding burst of EM energy from their rear vents. The nearest fighter tumbled off course. The second fired a torpedo, direct hit. The ship lurched violently. Alarms screamed. "We're hit." Secondary thruster down. Vega gritted her teeth. "Rerouting power to the primary array. Just hold us steady." Cade worked quickly, transferring systems and isolating damaged nodes. Sweat trickled down his back. "Main drive stable," he called. "We've got 1 shot." "Then let's make it count," Vega said. She flipped the ship, locking onto the last pursuer. A direct cannon burst struck the enemy cockpit. The fighter disintegrated. They punched into hyperspace a heartbeat later, the swirling corridor wrapping around them like salvation. Back at the Resistance base, they stumbled from the ship into a crowd of cheers. The relay had gone down. Dominion communications were offline across 5 sectors. Rebel cells were already making moves. In the debriefing room, Admiral Fenn saluted them both. "You did more than we ever asked. This victory is yours." Cade looked at Vega, her hand in his. "Ours." Over the next month, everything changed. Systems that had been silent for years roared back with resistance. Stations that once trembled under Dominion control began striking back. The stolen data, now decrypted and distributed, became the backbone of coordinated rebellion. Cade trained new engineers. He designed portable relay jammers, sabotage tools, mobile medkits. Vega led strike missions, trained pilots, and mapped liberation zones. But they always returned to each other. To a small, private chamber lit with filtered starlight. To whispered jokes and bruised shoulders and quiet meals that tasted like promise. One night, after a long mission, Cade traced the glowing lines of Vega's skin as they lay together. "Do you think we'll ever stop running?" Vega tilted her head. "I don't want to run anymore. I want to build." "Where?" "Anywhere you are." Cade smiled, pulling her close. "Then let's build." 6 weeks later, Vega was offered a new command, a mobile resistance fleet, designed to move from system to system, hitting Dominion infrastructure while protecting liberated zones. "It's dangerous," she said, fingers interlocked with Cade's. "And I don't know how long I'll be gone." Cade stood beside her on the hangar deck. Ships glowed under repair lights. Fighters prepped for launch. "Then I'm coming," he said simply. Vega blinked. "Are you sure? You asked me to fly with you once." "I said always. I meant it." Her smile was the sunrise. Together, they stepped onto the command bridge of the lead vessel. "Let's go," Vega said, and the ship launched toward the stars. And somewhere, far from Dominion charts, in a place not yet named by maps or claimed by empires, a new world waited. One they would help create. Together.